Hello everyone, my name is Rukuto Kamo from Childline, Kohima. We are so grateful to the Department of School Education, Government of Nagaland for giving us a slot to introduce Childline to you through this medium. What or who is Childline? Childline 1098 is a national toll-free helpline number for children in distress and in need of care and protection, which operates 24/7. It is a project under the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India. Childline is currently operating in 570 cities all across India and presently operating in 5 districts in Nagaland, that is Kohima, Dimapur, Mokokchung, Peren and Kiferi. Who can call 1098? A child or any concerned adult can call 1098 anytime for children in distress and in need of care and protection. Childline do not reveal the identity of the person calling 1098. It is always kept confidential. What are the categories of cases supported by Childline? There are the missing children, the runaway children, abused children, children seeking medical assistance, child labor, street children, and all kinds of children in need of care and protection. What are some of the services extended to children by Childline? We respond to phone call 24/7, rescue of a child if need arise, nutrition and emotional support and guidance through counseling, referral services such as medical assistance, temporary shelter, education sponsorship, restoration and repatriation of a child to their families in the best interest of the child. How do we create awareness? We conduct awareness programs in college, schools, churches, colonies, outreach programs through one-to-one interaction, small group meetings, and distribution of our Childline IEC materials. We also create awareness on the existence of Childline and its services and the different laws of our country protecting our children. We also create awareness on the cases prevalent in our city. Childline does not work alone or in isolation. We work along with various line government departments and agencies like the district administration, the police department, the legal department, education department, medical department, labor department, the social welfare department, state child protection society, district child protection unit, the child welfare committee, our Childline partners in different parts of the country, and all the NGOs working for children. In conclusion, we want to send a message across to everyone that even as the entire world and our nation is battling against COVID-19 pandemic, Childline is still there to reach out to any child in distress and in need of care and protection. We also take this opportunity to make an appeal to each and everyone to please call 1098 whenever you see any child in distress and in need of care and protection. Let us all join hands to make our city a safe place for our children to live in. Thank you, God bless, and stay safe.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my zoology class. We're going to start the zoology class after a long time. So previous class we were talking about cancer. Now we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, that is immunity. How do you define immunity? When you talk about the immune system, the first thing that comes to your mind is the defense of the body, right? So how do you define immunity? Immunity can be defined as the ability of the organism to resist the development of a disease. How is disease caused? Disease is caused when a pathogen enters a body. What do you mean by pathogen? Pathogens are foreign substances that causes problem to our body. Problem in the form of disease, remember that. So when you talk about immunity in your body, they have the ability to recognize self from non-self. That means they have the ability to recognize the cells that comes from outside in regard to the cells that are already inside your body. Remember that. So when you talk about immunity, what are the different types? They are basically of two types, remember, okay? They are of innate or inborn, and then the second one is acquired immunity. So what do you mean by innate or inborn immunity? The word itself, inborn itself, indicates that it is found when you are born, right? So this type of immunity is found from the moment you are born. Automatically your body starts resisting certain pathogens. I'm going to use the word pathogen a lot, okay? So in case of innate immunity, they are of the external defense. Okay, they are of basically two types, remember that. They are of the external defense, which is found on the external body of the human being. That is called the first line of defense. When you talk about the external defense, the first thing that should come to your mind is the skin, right? So a physical barrier, there is the physical barrier like skin, mucous membrane of alimentary and respiratory canal. How does it provide immunity? In regard to your skin, it does not allow any microbes to enter, right? It does not allow any pathogens to enter. You know what are microbes, right? Small microscopic particles, remember that. So the skin also acts like the first line of defense. The second one is mucous membrane. That is the mucous part that is found in case of alimentary canal. Let's say your stomach part, your small intestine part. There will be a mucus found which will prevent the pathogens from entering, which will prevent you from having diseases, remember that. Then comes the physiological barrier. Physiological, remember that. Those are basically composed of chemicals. So the example of physiological barrier is lysozyme and acidity in stomach. This lysozyme is an enzyme that is found in your tears. Okay, this helps in preventing bacteria from entering your body. Remember that. Besides this, when you talk about acidity in your stomach, what should be the first thing that comes to your mind? It should be hydrochloric acid, right? Your stomach is filled with acid, basically hydrochloric acid. So what is the main function of hydrochloric acid? To burn down the pathogens, basically the bacteria. Remember that. Now we come under the second line of defense, that is the internal defense. That means the defense system that is found inside your body. Okay, so these defense are the cellular barrier. What do you mean by cellular? That means that is regarding the cells, remember that. The cellular barrier, like WBC, the WBC means white blood cells. They are basically the warrior of the body, right? You know that, right? So the WBC, the macrophages, that is a very big cell that is formed by the monocytes, and then the monocytes and the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are cells that is formed in your lymph nodes. Remember that. So how does it help? It helps by releasing antibodies. It helps in engulfing eating the foreign pathogens and then destroying it. Remember that. The next one is the cytokine barrier. What happens in case of cytokine barrier is that it makes the surrounding cell resistant to viral inhibition by secreting a specific protein, which is not an antibody. Remember that, okay? The first thing that comes to your mind when you talk about defense is antibody, right? But in this case, in case of cytokine barrier that is found inside your cell, you will find that they will start secreting a protein called interferon. What will happen? In particular cell, if the pathogen enters, then in the particular area of the cell, the interferon will make the virus not stop it from developing further and multiplying further. That comes under the second line of defense, that is the internal defense. Okay, now The second one is after the acquired immunity. The inborn immunity. The second one is the acquired immunity. The word itself acquired means you have acquired it. Okay, this immunity is something which you acquire in your lifetime after you are born. This comes under the third line of defense, that is the third wall of defense. In this case, the acquired immunity, the resistance to disease that an individual acquires in its lifetime, that is called acquired immunity. It is antigen antibody specific. You know what is antibody, right? What are antibodies? Antibodies are those which are released by plasma cells. Then what do you mean by plasma cells? Plasma cells are specific specialized cells that are formed because of B cells. Remember that. Okay, so they are basically, in case of immunity, there are two types of cells involved in immunity, B cells and T cells. They are also called B lymphocytes or T lymphocytes. So the antibodies are released by the plasma cells, which is initiated because of the B cells. Remember that. So this antibody will go and attack the antigen. Antigen is found in the foreign substance. Remember that. So they will form a bond in a way in which it will slowly break down the harmful pathogens inside the cell. Remember that. So in case of acquired immunity, what is the characteristics of acquired immunity? The first one is it is very specific. That means if you have cases of chickenpox, let's say, attacked by the virus of chickenpox, then what will happen is that it will specifically attack the antigen. The antibody of chickenpox specifically will be produced. Antibodies of different type of diseases will not be produced. Okay, that means they are very specific. They are very diverse. Diversity means there are different types of antibodies. There are so many diseases in this world, right? So in order to help your body encountering and avoiding the diseases, there are different type of antibody which leads to the diversity. Remember that. The next one is differentiate between self and non-self. What do you mean by that? That means the acquired immunity can know which one is part of your body cell and which one is not part of your body cell. That means it is very specific. Remember that. The last one is it has memory. That means it will remember. The acquired immunity will remember. Like in case of chickenpox, right? Once you get infected, the second time you don't get infected. How? Because your body remembers that you have already the disease, so the antibody is already built up. That is, there is memory. So what do you mean by memory? Once a body encounters a pathogen, it activates the immune system to destroy it. That means in case of chickenpox, it destroys it and then you get better. And after that, it remembers what antibodies were released. It remembers that. So next time you get exposed to chickenpox, the antibody will immediately start working and you will not get infected. Remember that. That comes under acquired immunity. So in case of acquired immunity, then what are the cells involved? I have already told you about B cells and T cells, right? So B cells and T cells are the cells that are developed initially at the stem cell. You know what is stem cell, right? From the stem cell, in case of B cell, it will go to your bone marrow, okay, your bone marrows. Well, after it goes to your bone marrows, there it will mature. You know, from the bone marrow, all the RBC, WBC and all are created, right? So along with that, the B cells are created, which leads to your formation of antibodies. That's the first thing that should come to your mind. In case of T cells, what will happen is that from the stem cells, it will go, let's say, to the bone marrow, but it will go and stay to your thymus. Remember that, where maturation of the T cells takes place. That means maturation of B cells and T cells are different. B cells matures in your bone marrow and T cells matures in the thymus. Remember that. So what is the characteristic of a B cell? The B cell is also called a B lymphocyte. Okay, remember that. The B cells, they develop in the bone marrow. That one I've already explained. The B cells immediately differentiate into plasma cells, which produce antibodies specific to the antigen. What is the antigen? Antigen is the foreign structure that comes along with the pathogen, right? So it's like a jigsaw puzzle. The antibody and the antigen, they fit together, okay, and then that's how the immune response starts. So in this case, the B cell, what happens is that the B cells will produce lots of clones, same type of cells, okay. Those are called the plasma cells. These plasma cells produce, or they are produced in large number. Why they produce in large number? Because the plasma cells have the ability to produce antibodies, okay. So when the plasma cells are developed, they produce antibodies. Antibodies are basically a little bit Y-shaped structure, okay, which we'll learn about it next class. So the antibodies gets released, and then the antibodies goes to the pathogen and gets attached to the antigen that is present on the surface of the pathogen. Remember that, okay. In case of B cells, another characteristic is that the antibody attaches to a specific antigen. This antibody attaches to surface of antigen, which I've already explained. Where the pathogen is there, there will be a structure. That outer structure on this outer surface is called an antigen. So when the plasma cells releases the antibody will come swimming and then gets attached to the antigen, okay. After it gets attached to the antigen, what will happen is that the antibody antigen will stop and then will start making pores, okay, will start breaking down the cell membrane of the pathogen. Remember that. So it will make it porous, and then hence the pathogen will slowly die off. That's how they work, the immune system. In case of B cells, the immunity dependent of B cells are called humoral immunity. Why are they called humoral immunity? Because they are basically found in the humerus, the bone marrow. Remember that. That's the reason why they are called humoral immunity. The second one is called the T cells. What are the T cells? Why are they called T cells? Because obviously they matured in the thymus. That's the reason why they're called T cells. It originates in bone marrow and develop in the thymus, like the way I told you, from the stem cell to the bone marrow. From the bone marrow, instead of maturing with the B cells, it does not mature there. It goes to the thymus, which is found around here, a butterfly-like structure that is found inside. So, and then what will happen is that it will get matured in the thymus. What is the characteristics of T cells again? It releases helper T cells, which further releases cytokines. I've told you about cytokines, right? The cytokine barriers. It releases helper T cells. What do you mean by that? T cells are again of different types, okay? They are cytotoxic T cells, which release toxins, which will kill the pathogen cells, okay? There are helper T cells. Why am I specifically focusing on helper T cells? Because the helper T cells goes and help the B cells and tell them to release the plasma cells. That's the reason why I'm focusing on the helper T cells. Remember that. In case of T cells, again, cytokines, which the T cells releases after the T cells are formed. When there is an antibody that is present, the T cells will start releasing cytokines. Remember that. These cytokines will go and tell the B cells, oh, it's time that you start releasing plasma cells in large quantity. Why? Because the plasma cells needs to release antibody. Remember that. Okay, so cytokines tells the B cells to change to plasma cells, which produce army of protein in antibody. Remember that. Okay, so they will start making antibodies, which will be in the form of armies. Okay, this antibody is composed of protein. Remember that. After that, there are the types of acquired immune response. That is, what are the types? We have already studied, but I'm just giving you a brief introduction about this one. The components. What are the components of acquired immunity? Means what are they composed of? They are composed of humoral and cell mediated. Humoral means the B cells, right? And cell mediated means T cells. What is humoral? They occur in body humerus or body lymph or plasma. Remember that. That means the B cells. lymph nodes, you know where are lymph nodes, right? Basically they are formed limbs near your neck part, your armpit part. Those are the lymph nodes. They have a different lymphatic system like the circulatory system. They defend body against virus, bacteria and toxins. That is the main function. And they have memory B cells. That means they remember. Okay, so what is the characteristics of cell-mediated cells? The cell-mediated cells work against those pathogens that invade host cells. That means the T cells are specialized for host cells, like your cells. Suddenly you have a cancerous type of cells. You know what a cancer, right? Uncontrolled growth of cells. What will happen is that the T cells will go and then control them. Okay, like cancer and transplant. You have heard of transplant, right? In case of kidney transplant, heart transplant. Why do they have problem of rejection? Because your T cells can know which one is your cell and which one is not your cell. That's the reason why you always look at the blood group, the compatibility when you do transplant, right? So this comes under cell mediated components of immune system. Okay, so in the next class we will start a different topic. So before that, I just want you to go through your structure of the antibody. The structure is a Y-shaped structure which is very famous. So I want to browse through your internet or your textbook and look at the diagram and try to get a grasp of what structure, which part goes and attaches to the antibody. Okay, that's all for today, and then see you next class.